Welcome, welcome everybody. How are you doing today? It's so very nice to have you here. So how do we find peace in issues related to work, survival, and money? So first about peace, because peace, our true nature, is always already here. This is not something that happens in the future, and you can know this in this very moment. Since this is our true nature, right? So it's always here. You can know this by directing your attention inward, by for a moment not paying attention to thoughts, feelings, sensations, emotions, but just simply bringing your attention here. Good, good, beautiful. So that's how we can always find peace here, right? Just by coming directly here. However, when we are in a world, when we are relational, when we are at work, when we are dealing with issues around money, we often encounter challenges that are related to unmet, unfinished patterns of the past. And so often when it comes to work, relationships, and money, these issues they couple in our nervous system together with the survival instinct in this body. And that makes it very strong experientially. You know, when the survival instinct kicks in and it really shows up in your physiology, that makes it very, very strong. It's a very strong experience. And that in turn also makes it look very, very, very real. So we need to become aware of these patterns. And we also need to become aware of the survival instinct that arises with them. And we have to learn to uncouple the survival instinct, which, by the way, is a natural thing. You know, the survival instinct is part of the experience of being in the body. It arises here. It has its role. It has its function. However, these days, so much of the time, you know, we are not really challenged in our survival, right? There may be moments or some situations, very rarely, but so much of the time we experience that sense of survival though. So what we want to learn, we want to recognize these patterns as they arise. We want to learn to become aware of them rather than just accepting them, you know, rather than just accepting that level of activation, right? Or that level of sense of survival present. And we also want to learn to uncouple the survival from whatever the issue is in a moment, so that we can really come to rest. And then so that we can also find what is really the movement, what is really the action that can happen from here. So I will be speaking about this and more, of course, in much greater detail about work, relationships, and money. When it comes to relationships, you know, what is really the meaning? There's no other. And at the same time, to understand there is an other or many other nervous systems that arise in presence. And also, you know, relationally, so often our defense mechanism is a projection, right? So it is just being in a world, not even being relational. You know, we project, you know, what arises, right? And we see it out there and it looks very, very real. So I will be speaking about all this and more. However, today I want to invite you into a very simple inquiry around any issue that you experience around work, relationships, or money, where the sense of survival is present. You know, when survival is here, there's a lot of activation. There's a real sense of urgency. And there's also a sense, bottom line, you know, if I don't do this, then I'm not going to survive, right? So let's find a situation like that. where there's, around work, relationships or money, where that sense of survival is present, where you experience some challenge around that, and maybe on a scale from 1 to 10, if we can start with 5 to 6, not the biggest challenge or the biggest issue right away. So once you know what the situation is, let's just sit here for a moment first. Good, beautiful. And then you can speak about it aloud as you are watching. Describe that situation. What really happens? And if you are doing this sometimes on your own, you can just write it down also. You can speak or you can write it down. Good, beautiful. And then let's take a moment to notice the sensations that are present in your body. Let's also take a moment to make sure we have a good support for the nervous system and brain by taking in the environment. By noticing your feet, your legs, or your arms and your hands. Good, beautiful. And as these sensations are here, and maybe they even subside a little bit as you sit with them like that, you want to ask yourself, are these sensations okay? And that question is really not a question to your mind. That question is really a question that you drop within, and it's not about the past. It's not about the situation. It's not about in that moment, but it's right now as you are sitting here. Are these sensations okay? And the answer can be either yes or no. It doesn't really matter. We are just curious about where this, where we are at in this moment. So if the answer is yes, you just allow the sensations to be here. When the answer is no, we want to identify that no as a sensation in your body, and we want to sit with that sensation as well. And we want to sit here until that sense of urgency subsides. You see, that sense of urgency, that survival instinct, it makes it so very real. It looks like, yep, really, there's really something going on. And if we don't do it like this, we are going to die. And so we want to sit here and use any of the tools that you have. Look around, notice your body, notice the weight of your body, notice your arms, notice your hands. We want to use any of the tools we have to help the nervous system and brain to be here. And we sit here until that urgency subsides. Because once that urgency subsides, now we are out of that survival instinct here, right? Now we are out of that coupled urgency, the tendency of the past and the survival instinct coming together. We are out of that. Good, good. Now we can come more into the reality of what's really going on here, or what's really present, right? So once that urgency subsided, and once you're able to be here more, now you can approach that situation. Now you can see what's really happening, right? Now that your judgment is not clouded by that survival instinct, now that your physiology is not affected by it, now you can maybe see, yeah, is there something to be done? Or if so, what, And the difference between survival, when we are in survival, is that there's no options, right? Or there's only maybe one option, or maybe not, right? When we are out of the survival, there's many, many ways, many options, right? We can go this way, we can go that way. Beautiful, beautiful. And that's one of the ways of how we find peace, and rest in the issues connected to work, survival, and money. So please join me in our upcoming 3-week intensive, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there.